Okay, we have learned other ways of adding integers, and today we're just going to learn how to add these integers using the rules. So we have some vocabulary today. You need to know what opposites are. Opposites are two numbers that are the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides. So for example, you have 3 is 3 spaces away from 0. And its opposite, -3, is also 3 spaces from 0. You can also just think of, okay, well, a whole number and then what is it, negative. So you have 3 and -3. You also need to know the additive inverse. It is the opposite of a given number. The sum of an integer and its additive inverse is 0. So it's like an opposite. So you have, like if you have 6, its additive inverse is a -6. And this is the additive inverse property, where if you add a number and its additive inverse, it'll be 0. Okay, so let's look at the rules. Whenever you're adding positive numbers, this stuff you already know, this one right here, positive plus a positive is going to give you a positive number. If you add 2 plus 2, you're not going to get a -4. It's always been 2 plus 2 is 4. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now this may be different for you. You have a negative plus a negative is equal to a negative. And if you add with different signs, meaning if you have a positive plus a negative or a negative plus a positive, you're actually going to subtract and keep the sign of the number with the higher absolute value. So do what? If you have the same signs, such as positive and positive, negative and negative, you're going to add and keep the sign. If you have different signs, you're going to subtract. So you can kind of think of this as a little chant to help you remember. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. So example number 1. You may already know how to do this, but just looking at the rule. 18 plus 20. This is a positive number plus a positive number, which is going to give us a positive. Same signs, add, and keep the sign. So we're going to keep the positive sign after we add. So whenever you add 18 plus 20, you get 38, and it's going to stay a positive 38. Looking at example number 2. You have a -8 plus a -21. This is a negative plus a negative. So this is the same signs. You're going to add and keep the negative sign. So our rule is a negative plus a negative number is equal to a negative. So you're going to add these, so you could just say like 8 plus 21 is 30, but you know that's going to be a -30, because a negative plus a negative is a negative. Example number 3. This is where you have the opposite signs. You have a positive number plus a negative number. These are not the same signs, so it's going to be different signs, subtract. So what you're going to kind of do is pretend there's like no signs there, and you're going to subtract. And you're going to say, okay, well 12 minus 6. And that's going to give us 6. But whenever you find out if it's going to be a positive or a negative, you take the sign of the number with the highest absolute value. So you come over here and you look at, okay, 6 is, the absolute value is 6. And 12, the absolute value is, a -12, the absolute value is going to be 12. Remember, absolute value is the distance it is from 0, and its distance is always positive. You can also look here whenever you pretended there were no signs and think of this as your absolute value. Our 12 is our bigger number with absolute value, and it is a -12. So our answer is going to be negative. Take the sign of the number with the highest absolute value. Okay, let's look at another example of opposite signs. You're going to actually subtract. So pretend there's no signs. So it's going to be 8 minus 3, which gives you 5. You're going to take the sign of the number with the highest absolute value. So if you come over here, the absolute value of -3 is 3. and the absolute value of 8 is 8. So 8 has the highest absolute value, and it is positive, so our answer will stay positive 5. Let's look at example number 5. If you notice here, we have a number and its opposite. So if you remember the additive inverse property, you'll know that since the numbers are opposites, remember the sum is always 0. So a negative 15 plus its opposite 15, the answer is 0. Example number 6. You may see problems like this where you have 3 numbers. You're going to use the order of operations as always, and you're going to do one problem at a time. Order of operations, the only operations we have here are addition. So we're just going to move from left to right. So we're going to start with a negative 8 plus 7 first. Looking at the past examples, we know that we're actually going to subtract here because we have opposite signs. So if we look at, let's say 8 minus 7, 8 minus 7 is 1. And we're going to take the sign of the higher number, or that number with the highest absolute value. So that would be this negative 8 here, because the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. The absolute value of 7 is 7. So this one is bigger, so we're going to take the negative sign down. So the answer to that problem is a negative 1. And as you see here, I've just brought down the plus negative 2. So now we are left with one last problem to do. So a negative 1 plus a negative 2, that is the same sign. So we're going to add and keep the negative sign. So 1 plus 2 is 3, and that would be a negative 3. And that's going to be the answer to this whole problem in example 6. I want you to try these on your own.